Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the next episode here to study along. It's kind of an impromptu live. Definitely want to go through some more questions here in the extra class tonight. Went down to Litchworth State Park yesterday. About probably three and a half hour drive down, and did a little hiking and stuff with my son and family, and tried to do he's doing a 20 miler for his scouting. So, and when we got done with some of that, I set up and played a little radio. Didn't get to activate the park, unfortunately, but it still was a fun time just sitting out there playing radio and picking up a lot of good stations. So, well, with that, let's transition over, try to do a few questions tonight just to continue our studying efforts. I still want to try to get my extra class done here. I'm hoping before the end of the year, but sooner than later anyways. So let's kind of transition here over to the extra class and pick up where we left off. So we're still in the digital section. Been pretty interesting so far. So our next question here is, what technique do individual nodes use to form a mesh network? Is it A, forward error correction in Viterbi codes? I think I'm pronouncing that right. B, acting as store and forward digipeaters. C, discovery and link establishment protocols. Or D, custom code plugs for the local trunking systems. I want to say it's discovery and link establishment protocols. When you reflash them, if for some of those, like using like what I've got, the old Linksys routers, you reflash them and they're set up to automatically connect and identify. So I'm thinking C. One of the amazing properties of a mesh network, as opposed to other topologies, yeah, that's a mouthful, is that the network can be assembled on the fly without any complicated and tedious configuration of individual nodes like routers and switches. Nodes in a mesh network can find each other automatically and connect in the most efficient manner, using advanced protocols for doing just that. Fortunately, you don't have to be a hacker to use these protocols. Just let the hardware do its thing. So the correct answer is C. So what techniques do individual nodes use to form a mesh network? Correct answer is C, discovery and link establishment protocols. All right. Which of these digital nodes or digital modes does not support keyboard-to-keyboard operation? A, Pactor, B, RTTY, C, PSK31, or D, MFSK? It's fun to exchange messages with other hams using your keyboard in real time. You can hear the sounds of RTTY, PSK31, and MFSK on on the CD you can get with this if you purchase it on Gordo's live audio CD course. This is keyboard to keyboard at its best. WinLink is a great way to send digital traffic into the email system using Pactor protocols, and can also be used to send graphics and weather picture charts, but Pactor is not designed for keyboard to keyboard communications. So the correct answer is A. So which of these digital modes does not support keyboard to keyboard operation? That is A, Pactor. All right. What is the appropriate bandwidth of a 13 word per minute international Morse code transmission? A, 13 hertz, B 26 Hz, C 52 Hz, or D 104 Hz. To determine the bandwidth of a Morse code signal, use this formula. BW underscore CW equals baud rate times words per minute times fading factor. For CW, the baud rate is 0.8 and the fading factor is 5. Therefore, multiply 0.8 times 13 words per minute times 5. The answer works out to be about 52 Hz. So what is the best approximate bandwidth of a 13 word per minute international Morse code transmission? Correct answer is C, 52 Hz. So definitely one to commit to memory for the exam is one or more formula here for determining that. So this is Morse code is more popular than ever these days on ham radio, which a lot more CW going on. I'm still learning myself. And waveform of a single CW edit, and it kind of shows a single CW dit. It kind of shows the waveform on that picture. So next question here. What factors affect the bandwidth of a transmitted CW signal? Is it A, IF bandwidth and Q, B, modulation index and output power, C, keying speed and shape factor, basically your rise and fall time, or D, all the choices are correct? While a continuous carrier RF wave has zero bandwidth, once you start or stop the wave, this is no longer applies. During the rise and fall of a CW character, the bandwidth is no longer zero, but depends on the keying speed and the shape of the factor, rise and fall times, of the CW envelope. The harder the keying, the more bandwidth a CW signal will occupy. So the correct answer is C. So what factors affect the bandwidth of a transmitted CW signal? C, the keying speed and shape factor, which is your rise and fall. So that's interesting to know. Okay, next question here. What is the primary effect of extremely short rise and fall time on a CW signal? Is it A, more difficult to copy, B, the generation of RF harmonics, C, the generation of key clicks, or D, limits data speed? The process of keying a carrier on or off very quickly is identical to AM modulating. The process of keying a carrier on or off very quickly is identical to AM modulating it at a very high frequency. This generates sidebands resulting in key clicks, which can be far removed from the carrier frequency. These sidebands can splatter across a large swath of amateur band. Care should be applied to your keying wave shape for good CW operation. So what is the primary effect of keying or extremely short rise and fall time at a keying signal? Correct answer is C, the generation of key clicks. And I showed somebody doing some keying on a Elecraft radio with the key mounted right to the bottom of the radio. Morse code for lower power QRP is just a ticket on a small battery operated rig with built-in paddles. That's pretty neat to see. For our next question here, what is the most common method of reducing key clicks? A, increase keying waveform rise and fall times. B, low pass filters at the transmitter output. C, reduce keying waveform rise and fall times. Or D, high pass filters at the transmitter output. The CW envelope shape will greatly affect the emitted spectrum of a CW signal, as well as its sound. If the rise and fall times are too abrupt, it will emit key clicks, which are sidebands that can splatter across a large swath of amateur band. If the keying is too soft, the tone can sound a bit mushy on the receiving end, and high-speed characters may overlap with succeeding characters. Linear amplifiers can alter the keying envelope too, so it's a great idea to be able to adjust both the rise and fall times of your CW note. You may want to check out the December 1984 QST article, Try This Versatile CW Shaper by Eric, for ideas on how to do this on a variety of radios. So the correct answer is A. So what is the most common method of reducing key clicks? That is A, increase keying waveform rise and fall times. And there's just kind of a good to know information here on the next page. New mission for CW, talking about some digital sites related to computers and radios, and it's like dstarinfo.com, dstar.info.com /repeater lists, dstarusers.org /repeaters, cq-amateur-radio.com, dvdongle.com, rsgbiota.org, dailydx.com, and then cluster.sdr-radio.com. So just some good, looks like, information there. And we are moving on to the next section. We'll do a few more questions out of the new section here. I usually try to shoot for 10 to 15 questions so myself and viewers don't get too bored. So we've done 6 questions. We'll do another 5 or so, get us up, next into the next 1 or 2 pages here. So this next section here is modulate your transmitters. So kind of shows a nice cartoon guy there operating a radio. So with this, let's next question here, and this first question of this section is, what is the modulation index of an FM signal? Is it A, the ratio of frequency deviation to modulating signal frequency? B, the ratio of modulating signal amplitude to frequency deviation? C, the type of modulation used by the transmitter? D, the bandwidth of the transmitted signal divided? So, in an FM signal, the amount of deviation determines the loudness of the signal, while the modulating frequency determines the spacing between sidebands. For any given modulating frequency, there is an optimum output of deviation that can be accommodated by a given bandwidth. The relationship between deviation and modulating frequency is complex, described by Bessel functions. Different FM services are defined by specific modulation indications, basically. So the correct answer is A. So what is the modulation index of an FM signal? It is A, the ratio of frequency deviation to modulating signal frequency. All right, move on to the next one here. How does modulation index of phase modulated emission vary with RF carrier frequency? A, it increases as the RF carrier frequency increases. B, it decreases as the RF carrier frequency increases. C, it varies with the square root of the RF carrier frequency. Or D, it does not depend on the RF carrier frequency. This is one of those answers that has a not in it that makes it correct. When you calculate the modulation index, you do not look at the actual RF carrier frequency as part of your calculations. So the correct answer is D, and it says take a close look at your clean FM signal on the scope, which if any of us have a scope, that is. So how does your modulation index of phase modulated emission vary with RF carrier frequency? Correct answer is D. It does not depend on the RF carrier frequency. We're learning now. Alright. Little chart here in the book on the next page kind of shows you FM versus AM, greater number of sidebands. In FM modulation, one sine wave is used to modify another sine wave and multiply and multiple sums and differences result. Depending on deviation ratio, this is illustrated in the figure A below. Sidebands appear on either side of frequency C at frequency MP. A lot of algebraic symbols here. So depending upon the deviation ratio, figure B shows that there are 5 significant sidebands for a deviation ratio of 3. And figure C shows that the significant sidebands of a deviation ratio of 1.67, the multiple sidebands are formed in both upper and lower sideband positions, separated by the modulating frequency. So you can kind of see the graphs here showing that, depicting that. So kind of go through. Well, we'll finish this page of questions here and close it out for the night. So next question here. What is the modulation index of an FM phone signal having a maximum frequency deviation of 3000 Hz either side of the carrier frequency when the modulating frequency is 1000 Hz? Is it A, 3, B, 0.3, C, 3000, or D, 1000? This one is easy since both frequencies are given in Hertz. Be careful of your units as you do this type of calculation. Simply divide 3000 by 1000 to get a modulation index of 3. So your correct answer is A. So what is the modulation index of an FM phone signal having a maximum frequency deviation of 3000 Hz either side of the carrier frequency when modulating frequency is 1000 Hz? Correct answer is 3. So you would simply divide 3000 by 1000 and keep everything in Hertz. Well, as soon as you try to convert from Hertz to megahertz to kilohertz, you could end up coming up with the wrong or selecting the wrong answer. So it kind of shows you the formula here. Modulation index X equals peak deviation D divided by modulation frequency M, or X equals D divided by M. So that's the formula to remember. Okay, next question here. What is the modulation index of an FM phone signal having a maximum carrier deviation of plus or minus 6 kilohertz when modulated with a 2 kilohertz modulating frequency? Is it A, 6000, B, 3, C, 2000, or D, 1/3? Again, easy because both frequencies are kilohertz. Simply divide 6 by 2 to get a modulation index of 3. Correct answer is B. So there again, it's just the simple use the formula. You don't have to convert either of them to the similar frequency or range. They're both in kilohertz, so divide 6 by 2 to come up with 3. So what is the modulation index of a FM phone signal having a maximum carrier deviation of plus or minus 6 kilohertz when modulated with a 2 kilohertz modulated frequency. That's B3. Alright, next one. What is the highest modulating index permitted at the highest modulation frequency for angle modulation below 29 megahertz? Is it A, 0.5, B, 1.0, C, 2.0, or D, 3.0? With angle modulation, a sine wave carrier is varied by various angles to replicate the incoming modulation source. Excuse me. The highest modulation index permitted for angle modulation is exactly 1.0. So what is the highest modulation index permitted at the highest modulation frequency for an angle modulation below 29 megahertz? That is B, 1.0. And last question of the night. What is deviation ratio? A, the ratio of audio modulating frequency to the center carrier frequency. B, the ratio of maximum carrier frequency deviation to the highest audio modulating frequency. C, the rise of the carrier center frequency to the audio modulating frequency. Or D, the ratio of the highest audio modulating frequency to the average audio modulating frequency. It's important to set deviation ratio properly on your FM transceiver to prevent splatter of a signal bandwidth that is too wide. Deviation ratio is the ratio of the maximum carrier swing to the highest audio modulating frequency when you speak into the microphone. The correct answer is B. So what is deviation ratio? It is the ratio of the maximum carrier frequency deviation to the highest audio modulating frequency. So check out your deviation ratio by speaking loudly into the microphone while watching the scope. So that is that. You know what? Let's just do how long we've been going. Not sure when I started, how long we've been going for here. Yeah, about a half hour long. I think we'll call it there. We'll start pick up on the next one. So I appreciate everybody stopping in, watching the videos. Again, if you've got any feedback, please post them in the comments or send me an email. I did get some constructive suggestions from some folks, and I'm trying to implement that. So I appreciate everybody watching and studying along with me. Good luck on getting your passing exams, and keep getting on the air. With that, I'll say 7-3, and thanks for watching.